The call came just after dawn, the kind that fractures a life into before and after. A nurse's voice, thin with urgency, said their father was in the hospital, and the world seemed to tilt. 3 daughters stood in 3 different cities, all triplets born minutes apart, all feeling the same hollow shock at once. He had always been the one who stood steady while storms passed, the man who fixed broken things and held the family together with quiet patience. Now he lay beneath fluorescent lights, breath measured by machines, his strength suspended between heartbeats. In that suspended moment, a truth surfaced that had been buried for decades, and the search for answers would lead the sisters to a woman their father once stood up, a woman who would change everything. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this exist because people choose to care, and your support keeps these stories alive. The triplets had always been described as identical, but time had etched differences into them. There was the eldest by minutes, who carried responsibility like a second spine, always prepared, always planning. There was the middle sister, soft-spoken yet observant, who noticed the quiet details others missed and stored them away like pressed flowers. And there was the youngest, restless and bold, who chased meaning across miles and learned the language of risk. They shared a childhood filled with routine dinners and weekend chores, with a father who showed love through consistency rather than grand gestures. He worked long hours, returned home tired but present, and taught them that reliability was the truest form of devotion. Their mother had passed when they were young, leaving him to raise 3 girls alone, and he did it with a stoicism that felt like safety. In the hospital room, time stretched thin. Tubes traced paths over their father's body, and the steady beeping seemed too loud for such a fragile moment. The sisters moved around him like satellites, each coping in her own way, each carrying unspoken questions. In a worn leather wallet tucked into the pocket of his coat, the middle sister found a creased piece of paper. It was old, yellowed, the edges softened by years of handling. An address was written on it, the ink faded but legible. No explanation, no name, just a place, like a door that had never been opened. The discovery unsettled them. Their father was not a man of secrets. He was practical, transparent, and grounded. Yet here was something that did not fit. As hours turned into days and doctors spoke in cautious tones, the sisters returned to the address again and again, wondering what it meant. It was the youngest who suggested they go. The idea felt intrusive, almost disloyal, but the pull of the unknown was stronger than their hesitation. They needed to understand the man who had raised them, especially now that his life seemed to be slipping into the margins. The address led them to a small town with streets that curved gently, lined with old trees and modest houses. The place felt paused in time, like a memory refusing to fade. The house itself was unassuming, paint slightly weathered, windows framed by climbing ivy. Standing on the sidewalk, the sisters felt an unexpected weight settle over them, as if they were on the edge of a story that had been waiting decades to be told. The woman who lived there answered the door with a cautious smile that flickered into surprise. She was older than they expected, hair silvered by years, eyes still sharp and searching. Recognition passed through her face like a shadow crossing water. The sisters introduced themselves, their shared features unmistakable, and the woman's hands trembled as she listened. She did not need long explanations. She had been waiting, it seemed, for this moment to arrive. Years ago, she said, their father had promised to meet her. They were young then, full of plans that felt endless. He never came. She waited until the cafe closed, then walked home alone, carrying the sting of abandonment like a bruise that never quite healed. Life moved on because it had to. She married, lost, rebuilt, learned resilience. But the memory of that night lingered, shaping her understanding of love and trust in ways she could never fully explain. The sisters listened, their emotions tangled. The man they knew did not align with the story they were hearing, yet as the woman spoke, her words were not bitter. They were reflective, tinged with sadness but also acceptance. She had learned to forgive a ghost, she said, even without understanding why he disappeared. Forgiveness had been her way of surviving. What the sisters did not expect was what came next. The woman revealed that she had received a letter years after that missed meeting. It was from their father, written in a hand they recognized instantly. He explained that on the night he was supposed to meet her, He received news that his wife had been rushed into labor unexpectedly, complications threatening both her life and the baby's. He never made it to the cafe. In the chaos of the hospital, he lost track of time, of promises, of anything beyond survival. By the time he could explain, fear and shame convinced him it was too late. He chose silence, believing it was kinder than reopening an old wound. The revelation struck the sisters with a force that left them breathless. Their birth, the moment that defined their lives, had also been the moment that altered another woman's destiny. The woman had read the letter many times, the words softening her anger but never fully closing the chapter. She kept the letter, she said, because it reminded her that life's turning points were often shaped by circumstances beyond control. As the sisters sat with her, sharing stories of their father's devotion and quiet strength, something shifted. The woman saw the life he had built, the love he had given, and the sacrifices he had made. The sisters saw the cost of choices made in fear, the way silence could ripple through decades. In that shared understanding, a fragile bridge formed, connecting past and present in a way none of them had anticipated. Back at the hospital, the sisters told their father everything. They spoke carefully, gently, weaving the truth into a narrative of forgiveness rather than regret. Though weakened, his eyes filled with emotion, and a tear traced a slow path down his cheek. It was the first time they had seen him cry. The weight he had carried alone for so long seemed to lift, if only slightly. He asked for the woman's forgiveness, not in words, but through the peace that settled over his features. Days later, the woman came to visit. She stood at the foot of the bed, her presence quiet and steady. The room felt warmer, lighter. There was no need for explanations or apologies. Their shared history was acknowledged simply by being there. In that moment, the sisters understood that healing did not always require grand gestures. Sometimes it arrived through presence, through the willingness to face the past with open hearts. Their father's recovery was slow but steady. Each small improvement felt like a victory, a reaffirmation of hope. The sisters took turns staying with him, their bond deepening as they navigated fear and gratitude together. They talked about childhood memories, about their mother, about the paths that had led them away from home and back again. The hospital became a place not just of illness but of reconnection. The woman remained a part of their lives. She brought stories, laughter, and a perspective shaped by resilience. She did not seek to reclaim what was lost, only to honor what had been. Her presence reminded the sisters that life was not a straight line, but a series of intersections, some painful, some redemptive. As weeks passed and their father returned home, the story of that missed meeting transformed. From a source of sorrow into a testament to forgiveness. The sisters saw how a single act of compassion, extended across time, could reshape understanding. They learned that kindness was not always immediate, but it endured, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment near the end of this video to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may need a reminder that healing is possible. Just before we close, we invite you to comment below and share what this story made you feel, or a moment when forgiveness changed your life. In the quiet evenings that followed, the triplets often reflected on how close they had come to never knowing this chapter of their father's life. They realized that understanding someone fully meant accepting their imperfections, their silences, and the choices shaped by fear as much as by love. Their father, once defined by reliability alone, became more human in their eyes, a man who had stumbled and learned, who had carried regret alongside devotion. The woman who had once been left waiting found peace not in answers but in connection. The sisters found inspiration in her grace, and their father found relief in knowing that the past no longer held power over the present. Together, they formed an unlikely family bound not by obligation but by empathy. In the end, the hospital room that had felt so cold became the birthplace of something new. Not just recovery, but understanding. Not just survival, but reconciliation. The triplet daughters learned that love could stretch across years of silence and still find its way home. And in that realization, they carried forward a lesson that would shape their lives forever. That even the moments defined by absence could lead to profound connection, if met with courage and an open heart.